Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. Well, welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. We have a special guest. We always are mysterious about that individual. Her name is Sara, if that gives you any clues. As always, we're going to start the show with my partner here, asking some wild off the wall question.
So our guest today is a menace on the courts. She just, those nets, those hoops, whatever you want to call it, she crushes it. She is a basketball aficionado extraordinaire. So our question for her today is, Sara, you've been tasked to coach the next Space Jam team. You need to recruit 5 of the best players to play in Space Jam. Who are you recruiting? Can be any person, can be any sport, can be any cartoon, whatever. I just need 5 characters that you're bringing on to the next Space Jam.
Oh my gosh.
You got to coach them too.
Oh, I got to coach them
You're
too.
coaching them.
Name of the day, Caitlin Clark.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Becky Hammond, South Dakota native.
Okay.
First female NBA coach.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
I don't think she's been a head coach in the NBA yet.
Any fictitious characters you're bringing on board too? Because this is Space Jam. Remember, you got to.
Yeah. I feel like we got to bring Bugs Bunny back.
Okay.
Why not?
Why not? Got 2 more.
Inspector Gadget.
Oh, that's cheating almost. That's almost cheating.
She went there.
Go Gadget, dunk.
I feel like I need like a true post player, but I'm not sure who that is. I mean, Scottie Pippen.
Oh, all
Scottie.
right.
Oh,
Yeah, I was waiting for Steph Curry to get called out.
Oh, yeah, I love Steph Curry.
Or Godzilla.
he's
hard to coach.
That's his cheat. He's hard to block.
Look at his dunk. He just blazed everybody. All right, well, we're with Sara Lum, VP of Startup Sioux Falls. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So we're
Good to see you
excited
guys.
to learn more. Already, well, I don't want to get into that yet. We did find out some things about Sara that are kind of interesting. And as we always throw out there, we do have this little questionnaire so we know a little bit more about our guests, but also so they get acquainted with their nostalgic roots. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff on here that I thought was kind of cool. So tell us, where did you grow up?
I am from Brandon, South Dakota.
All right, just outside of Sioux Falls.
Mm-hmm.
We call that East Sioux Falls, don't we?
East
Pretty
side.
close. Pretty close.
B-Town.
What was the P-Town?
Baller town, basketball town.
Baller. What was the population then?
Oh gosh, I think it was somewhere around 5,000.
It was,
then.
really?
Yeah.
And what is it now? Do you know?
I have no idea.
It's definitely grown.
Yeah, I mean, when I graduated from high school, there were probably 200 per
Okay.
class, but I would think it's probably upwards of 350 by now. But that's a total guess.
And was Pizza Ranch operating when you were in school?
Oh yeah.
Were they really?
Mhm.
Was the bar behind Pizza Ranch there too?
Which one?
Whoa! I
She
think
knows more than one.
it's the
He
one
showed
that
you.
it's the one that you go through the kids area and then opens up the door and there's a bar there. I forgot what it's called.
Oh. Gosh.
But I've heard that apparently, that is quite the spot for the youth who are drinking age, of course.
I was going to say, what are you talking about?
I don't know if I remember that.
Maybe
yeah.
it's called the kids area.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your childhood?
Oh my gosh. We were always doing something all the time. So.
So who's we? How many siblings did you have?
So I have one little sister,
Okay.
Laura. She's still in Sioux Falls. It was just like that time in the 90s where, and maybe not everybody was like this, but we just had activities all of the time.
So what's the age difference between you and Laura?
5 years.
5.
Yep.
Okay. So did you beat her up a lot growing up?
Not really, but she was just way cooler than I am.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
She just, I'm much more introverted than
Yeah.
she is. She is a social butterfly. She always had millions of friends, still does to
Yeah.
this day.
Yeah.
She's insanely funny. She she knows all of the good music. Yeah, she's just amazing.
So
And,
those
and right now she's on a podcast going, my older sister was way cooler than me.
no.
All these people are
definitely not.
bothering me and she didn't. And it was awesome.
So there was never any tension between y'all or competitiveness.
Well, I mean, like, we're still siblings. I don't know if there would be competitiveness. I think there was probably tension when we were growing up because we're just so different. And also we were 5 years apart. So it was kind of like, I wish we were a little bit closer in age so I
Right.
could have been around longer, because when I went to college, she was still in middle school. So I felt like, it wasn't really there for like the time period when it really helps to have a older sibling.
Sure.
But we've just gotten closer and closer over age.
So did she get all the hand-me-downs?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking there's a mom that probably says, it's been 5 years and that's out of fashion. So we're just going to buy you all new clothes. And you go, damn you, sister, you win again. What's going on? But no, so she got the hand-me-downs.
Yeah, a few of them. Although we were told, like, she had long, skinny legs. I was, like, short. So there's probably only so many things she could.
So there's a height difference then
Yeah.
between the two of you. How much of a height
I mean,
difference?
not like a ton, a
Yeah.
few inches.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Sarah settled it on the courts. Didn't matter the height difference.
Hey, don't give away the juice just yet.
We both definitely had some attitude on the basketball court.
Oh, so she plays basketball too.
Yeah, she played basketball. She also played soccer.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So what was a fond or maybe unfond childhood Christmas memory with the family? Did you have anything,
Oh.
any Christmases that stuck out more than others?
No, like one Christmas over the other. There's this video that we often refer back to. It was around the time when my sister first started like crawling,
Okay.
or like she couldn't quite walk yet, I don't think. And it was Christmas morning. I yelled up the stairs like, Laura, like, 'cause I was like 6 or 7. So I was just really excited to see her reaction. Like, Santa came, and she like just comes scooting down the stairs, like butt first, like all the way down. Yeah.
Did she have a pamper on?
I don't even remember, probably. Yeah.
That could have been a mess. Squirting on the way down. Mom, did you change Laura's diaper?
This is a family rated show, Jeff.
You know me.
PG.
I go for the cheap, easy jokes there. So what were some of the groups that you enjoyed either watching on TV or listening to musically? I guess TV shows, whatever.
Like music wise, I was a 90s diva fan.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked all the Beyonce, the Whitney, Christina, Xtina, even like going back to Tina Turner.
Oh,
I
all right.
also really loved Michael Jackson, Jackson 5. Not like 90s diva, but
Yeah.
still great.
What's iconic of when you think 90s, what's iconic to you? Is it like the blow up furniture or the.
I definitely had some blow up furniture.
kinda forgot
I
about
also
that.
had the beads, from the doorway. The
Doorway
the
beads.
glowy.
That's the first person who's brought that up.
It
Really?
is. It
I'm
is.
shocked. Yeah. Yeah, the glow in the dark beads and the stars on the ceiling.
Well, like what you've got in your bedroom, Vince.
I actually had those in college. I put those on because it was pretty nice. Like, the stars.
So did you have there's a question we've never asked anybody yet. Did you have, when you were a child, did you have any fears of the dark?
I don't think I had fears in the dark. It is weird, like the weird things like you get in your head as a kid and like that you're afraid of. I had this strange fear of like mice. I don't know why,
All right.
but I would be afraid that like, I don't know, a mouse was gonna get me. And then
Bite your toe?
yeah,
So,
that's
like-
so weird. But
So, like, the Nutcracker would scare you because of the Rat King.
yeah, I don't know. Like, and maybe it was like the sounds in our house or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you have an imaginary friend?
I didn't.
Dang.
No.
Did you?
No.
I did. I didn't know his name. He lived in my bathroom. Every time I go to the bathroom, I would talk to him.
No name?
No name that I remember. Because he couldn't talk. He just existed, I guess, in
He
my mind.
existed to listen to your stories.
There's a
Yeah.
movie coming out now. I think Ryan Reynolds. It's called If, literally, about imaginary friends.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw something about
It's
that.
a preview for it.
Maybe I should file for copyright infringement. They took my ideas. Damn it. So what did your parents do when you were growing up?
So, my dad worked at Citibank for over 30 years.
Wow.
And he essentially retired because he was there for long enough where you could retire.
Sure.
And then now he works at Cigna Health.
Okay.
And growing up, I never really knew how to explain what he did. It was like He does something with credit cards, I think. But now that I'm sort of, I have experience in the marketing world, I get what he did. So he started his career as a math teacher, and then he went back to school for programming. And so he's a programmer, but then eventually led a team where they built surveys to collect information from customers and analyze that data.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then my mom was a medical technologist, and she managed some of the labs for Stanford throughout Sioux Falls. And so she would draw blood, like she could fix any machine. We had like microscopes at home growing up. And
So what did you want to be when you were young?
I wanted to be an architect when I was young, probably since the age of 12.
Wow.
12 or 14.
So it's a unique field that he asks most kids, what do you want to be? Doctor, policeman, fireman, whatever. But architect, where did that come from?
I think it was in part like I was good at art and I like could do math.
Yeah.
But I was really artistic and creative, always was. But then also like the Midwesterner in me is like, okay, how do I translate that into a 9-to-5 job? Like, you got to go to college, get a job.
As a 12-year-old, you were thinking that? Holy moly.
Well, I did. You didn't?
No, I was like...
I think that was just the mentality, though, of like, okay, how do you turn something you're interested in into something you can do for a real job?
Did you ever watch Brady Bunch as a kid growing up? That's probably before.
Slightly before my time.
But Mr. Brady was an architect.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's
funny.
what I'm thinking of. I can picture him. He had his little draft board. You never got to see the board itself, but he was always talking. Like the camera would show him at the board, but you never knew what he was drawing. And every once in a while, you'd see him doing his thing, making fat stacks.
I love how architects are often portrayed in pop culture because it's just kind of amusing sometimes.
How so? Tell us more about that.
Well, so he made fat stacks.
Yeah.
Most architects aren't making fat stacks until like much later in their career, maybe.
Yeah.
And then, what is that show? The bunch of friends in New York.
Friends?
No.
Yeah.
It should be that one. No, How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
That guy is an architect.
Barney?
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
I can't remember the character's name.
That guy.
That guy. And he is annoying like some architects are. Yeah,
Dad?
We're getting the dirt.
Yeah.
We'll just put up a picture of the cast and just put that guy on it.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, that
Circle
guy.
it. No, I don't know if Mr. Brady had made fat stacks, but having 6 kids plus they had a housemaid, Alice. I assumed he was making pretty decent money. Although they did drive that crappy looking station wagon, so maybe he didn't make as much money as we thought.
I didn't know TV families had real jobs.
Of course they do. They all do. Got to go back in time.
So, Sarah, what was your first exposure to architecture or architects as a profession then? Because you had to have it somewhat early on. If you, by 12-year-olds, 6th grade, you were like, oh, I want to be an architect.
Well, I think I was probably watching things like HGTV, stuff like that. Which, then after becoming an architect, it's like, oh gosh, like, what's his name?
Ted
Ted
is
Mosby.
the architect.
It's a very architecty name.
It is. All right. Ted Mosby.
I think in high school, I shadowed one of the wonderful architects over at Art Inc. And just kept going down that path.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So who were some of your art influences?
Well, I had a high school art teacher named Miss Jackson, who was really wonderful. And a few other teachers like growing up who, like just recognized my creativity.
Yeah.
And supported that. And then I had, a couple friends growing up that were just very imaginative and creative. And
do you have any artists that you really admired?
Specific artists, I could name a few. When I was in grad school, I worked at an art museum.
Oh, cool.
In Houston called the Rice Gallery, and it was a one-room installation art gallery.
Okay.
So every 3 months, it would be switched out. And so it was just fascinating to meet the different artists. Like one of the first ones was this name, I think I'm getting it right. His name is Wayne White.
Okay.
And he was one of the original set designers on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, wow.
and just an insanely talented artist. And like, he's a really fun Instagram follow too, because the pace at which he makes things is just incredibly inspiring. Because I think sometimes, especially as an architect, one of the challenges is like just getting out of your head a little bit and just like throwing things on paper.
Yeah.
Not like putting the pressure on it to be perfect. And so I love artists like that are really invested in process. And he was one of those.
So if you could only have art from one artist for the rest of your life in your house.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sorry. Heavy punches
Good
today.
question. That's a good question. Heavy punches.
Okay, I'm going to dodge your question.
Whoa.
And I'm just going to say local art. And I think you probably know this, Vince. This is like such a cheesy thing. But so my husband and I, my husband's a contractor and builder, but he's just like, he can make anything. He can make furniture. He's very talented. So we just, as a couple, we really appreciate people who make things and who can express their creativity. So we buy a piece of art every year around our anniversary. And so one of my like secret little dreams is to have a 50th wedding anniversary art show somewhere.
That's
All right, Mike,
Yeah.
if you're listening, you know what's happening.
Assuming we make it to 50 years and we have 50 pieces of art that we can, and then, like recording the stories of like how we.
You have a favorite piece right now?
I mean, one of them that started it is, we met in Lincoln. I left for a few years and came back, and his boss, when we left Lincoln, gave him, I can't remember the artist's name right now. It's just a landscape of Lincoln, Nebraska. She's a pretty well-known landscape painter in Nebraska. And so it just sort of was like the thing that started it all. We have a piece by like Michael Baum, which I really like. I think he might be in Rapid City. I can't remember. But he rode his bike across the state of South Dakota, and he built this contraption on the back of his bike with like a pen on it, and it would make like these line drawings. So I like a lot of like abstract kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So if you were an art thief and you could steal any piece of art out of a museum, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, you were really putting me on the spot.
Interpol's listening.
I don't know if there's like a specific piece. I like modern contemporary art and things that are just like meticulously made, like things that are like a little bit obsessive.
We'll be right back.
Gotcha.
All right, let's shift gears then. What is your, of the well-known art palaces in the world, whatever you want to call them, museums, etc.
Palaces.
What is your favorite from an architectural standpoint?
Okay, so I mean, there's so many good places. This is maybe a reflection of just the time I spent in Houston. So I went to grad school at a school called Rice University, which happened to be like in the museum district. And there were a lot of wonderful places to go. But my favorite is one called the Menil Museum. So it's this beautiful like campus. It's not just like one building. They have a have you heard of Rothko, like a Rothko chapel? Really beautiful, like contemplative space. And then the Menil Museum is kind of this long linear building. But then there's just like, it's basically a park with beautiful live oak trees. And then it's surrounded by a neighborhood of, I think they're just bungalows, like these cute little bungalows. And then they turned one of the former bungalows into a cafe. So yeah, it's just a beautiful, like quaint art museum.
So is Rice known for architecture or for that school?
Yeah, I think it's definitely known in that field.
Yeah.
Especially their undergraduate program.
Okay.
And I mean, their graduate program's wonderful too.
Yeah.
But they have this really unique thing for the undergrad where you go for 4 years and then you do a preceptorship year, and they connect you with an internship like at one of the 20 best firms in the world.
Sure.
And then you come back for a final year. I went there for grad school, so.
And I ran track there.
You did not.
I did.
Yeah, you had a meet
At
there
Rice?
once. Didn't you?
Well, not at Rice University. Well, not for Rice
Oh, here it goes.
University.
Well, not in the United States, but
No. But Rice University is where they would have the Houston middle school track meets. when I lived in Houston as a middle
I
school.
forget that we have this Houston connection.
Oh yeah, I did forget about that
I love
too.
this.
I kind of just follow Sarah around everywhere, Houston, Chicago, Paris.
We have some of our favorite. Yeah, it's why we like each other.
So when you were in college, did you end up getting one of those big tubes that you had to put all your drawings in?
Yeah, I
Like
had
all
the
those
tubes.
movies, that's how
Yeah.
people see architects. You got to have a tube.
Yeah.
Do you have any pictures of how large your tubes were compared to how tall you were? Because I feel like some of your drawings had to be
It's a
like...
personal question, Vince. Sarah, how big was your tube? Do they come in different sizes? Do they have a medium, small, and a large on the tube?
Well, they also had like the flat pack things too, like the you could do your, move
haven't
your
seen
drawings
that.
out. Yeah, it was like I think they still teach some traditional hand drawing. Even though everything is computerized now. And I taught for a little while, and like the first 2 years, even if you're going to end up using a computer most of your career, it's so it's helpful to like learn the hand stuff so you can like figure out how to take the ideas in your brain and communicate them quickly. So
yeah, I mean, I guess prior or earlier architects would have special pencils and erasers and paper and
I have all of that.
yeah.
So did you do a lot of art in high school then?
Yeah, I did quite a bit of art in high school. And I wouldn't, like I look at my drafting and my drawings and it's like, ugh, those are horrible. Like, I mean, when you work, some of the architects that are still working today who are later in their career, I mean, it's pretty incredible to see the hand drawings that they have stacked away somewhere.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was before computers. And
So how much easier do you think it is for a computer to be involved? Does that take away from some of the creativity, or do you think it makes it easier?
a little bit of both. Honestly, like it kind of depends on the software. I think
Yeah.
there was a time in like probably the early to mid 2000s where you could look at a building and say, oh, that was designed in SketchUp, or that was designed in
Really?
Revit, like, because
Wow.
it was very like component based, and buildings are very much designed in some way, a lot of times designed that way still. But I think the software just continues to get better.
So what are some myths that you would dispel that people you think commonly hold about architects?
I don't know. I'm curious. What do you think about?
Yeah, I think I always see architects as they're the ones that design the outside. Like I always give credit to what the outside of the building looks like. I don't really think as much about the inside, although that's got to be a big component of it. But it's usually, I see the building as the architect's piece of clay that they sculpted. Mm-hmm. But I don't have any other salacious things about architects.
Preconceptions about
Yeah.
who architects are?
Vince probably does.
Um,
You haven't asked that question yet, but here it comes. It's coming.
no, so I kind of want to, because usually we reserve towards the end of the show to talk more about the career stuff. But so we're still kind of in the middle of the show, and I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into, teenage, early college Sarah. Like, what are the things that are okay to talk about now because statute of limitations has passed?
Yeah. Or that guy's still in jail.
What are some fond memories you've got, or what are some?
He wants the dirt, Sarah. He wants the dirt.
Well, usually I ask folks, we lead up to it. Is there an incident or a time where something may have happened where you may have first realized, oh snap, maybe I should make a course correction here and change some things around.
Oh gosh, I unfortunately I was not like a crazy I didn't have like a huge rebellious streak. I mean, I had like a little one. To my detriment, I think a little bit of an achiever, like throughout high school and definitely throughout part of college. I will say, when I left high school, I was, I grew up in South Dakota. My perspective on the world was, this big. Religion was a pretty big part of who I was growing up. And then architecture school and just some mentors that I had throughout college just really opened my eyes to like how much bigger the world is. And so I would say like basically a lot of my worldview like basically flipped.
Yeah.
But I still like, it's weird to say like I still have a lot of the same underlying values. It's just the worldview that I'm coming from is quite different.
Yeah.
So I had, probably the most important professor from my time in college at Nebraska was this guy named Yuntae Jung. And he was my studio professor, which is like the most important coursework for architecture students in my second year. And we just clicked. I became his research assistant. We would have coffee every week and I would just listen to him. He would tell me about the world. He's a, South Korean man. I think he's somewhat of a Marxist. Like he's just like a fascinating, brilliant historian. And we're still in touch and still, I call him on his birthday every year.
That's cool.
And so he was really a person who believed in me, but also just helped me open my mind. And also, it's really fun to go to New York City and get a tour from him because he knows everything about every single building.
That's
cool.
very
So,
cool.
yeah.
Well, we haven't talked yet since Vince talked a lot about court. And I didn't know this about you prior to today, that you played for the Nebraska College or the University of Nebraska women's college basketball team.
You're a Husker.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not know
For
that.
one short season.
That's okay.
Too good. Too good.
It's more seasons than
All of us.
99% of the world, if not more. So what was that like?
It was incredible. It was a really wild experience. So Vince might know this story, but in the fall of my freshman year, I went to a game. And, basketball was a really big part of my upbringing. And I just loved the sport. And I just missed it when I went to this game. And so I somehow got the gumption to email one of the assistant coaches and just ask her, like, hey, what does it look like to walk on to the team, like, for next year? I was like, I'll keep practicing, whatever. And I had gone to some Nebraska, like, camps growing up, but they weren't going to recruit a 5'3" girl from Brandon, South Dakota.
Right, yeah.
But she emailed me back a couple of days later and said, well, what are you doing on Tuesday? Why don't you come by the gym and bring your shoes? So I tried out for the team on Tuesday. And on Thursday, I had my first practice. And on Friday, I was on a plane to Michigan as part of the team.
Wow.
So it was, and that plane ride was probably my third plane ride of my entire life. So it was a pretty incredible experience. I mean, from the playing side, I think I played in 4 or 6 games.
Yeah.
I have 100% shooting record. I'm 1 for 1.
Nice. Nice.
100%.
But even more so, my teammates were from all over the world, every socioeconomic, background,
Right.
every, like women who like women who like men,
Yeah.
and so that for me was a really transformative experience as well. Like being on a team of people
Yeah.
where, you don't all have, somewhat similar upbringing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's to me, I don't know, maybe I'm over romanticizing this, but I think that says a lot to me about you, that you had this dream and that you're like, hey, what's this look like if I walk on? Like, how many people have thought that but never actually acted on it?
Or done anything.
And knowing that you're 5'3", and like, how big were your teammates?
I mean, 6'2". I mean, I have 2 teammates who were Olympians.
Wow.
One who's an Olympic bronze medalist.
Crazy.
A couple of them are actually, one of them is still playing professionally. I mean, her jersey is retired. I mean, just incredible
Yeah.
people. And, it was also a good experience for me to like sit on the bench and just like play a different role
Yeah.
on a team. So it's been fun to watch them go on and do big things.
Yeah.
Did you have a nickname on the team?
Oh, I don't.
Nothing I can say.
I
on
had
air.
them growing up, like, because my maiden name is Hebe. So Hebo, short stuff, short stack, like just, stuff like that.
Stack.
I was just imagining this group of just tall gals, and then there's Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's totally what. Well, they had to order extra small warm ups because they didn't have any extra small warm
They
ups.
just go to the children's section. And
Yeah.
how was it balancing that life as a student athlete?
Well, I mean, that's ultimately why I only played 1 year. My at the end of the day, I needed my education like beyond school. Like I wasn't gonna have a profession as a basketball player, and also I was a non-scholarship athlete.
Okay.
And so in March of that year, I was in class 5 days. And architecture is like, even now, is very hands-on. Like you're like building models and stuff like that. And so it was just a really difficult thing to balance because it wasn't a book related degree. So I quit after that first year, and then I stayed involved. Like I helped with summer camps. So the women practice against a group of men, like guys who go to college who are really good basketball players. And so I would be on the practice team sometimes and stuff like that.
Did you get to experience any of the perks of a student athlete? Because I had a roommate who was a volleyball player, so he could turn in his assignments 2 weeks late. He could skip, because he was practicing.
I think I was too much of like a straight line person to take too much advantage. I mean, the perks was like I got to eat lunch in the Memorial Stadium. They had like really good food for the football players that the rest of the student athletes got to partake in. And just, the experience of traveling the country. And,
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to read this quote, do you know this Calvin Coolidge quote by heart?
I don't.
I wouldn't either because this is a long one, but it's a great segue. So this is what Sarah gave us. This is one of the quotes that she enjoys by Calvin Coolidge. He was president, right?
I think so.
Many years ago.
It's pretty cool.
Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. So what's that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's just like persistence and like continuously like having not necessarily goals, but like things that you're working towards and not being afraid to go after them, but also being persistent in that pursuit. And then I think there is like a little bit of like Midwesternness and like that sentiment too, where it's like, you can go be the smartest person who, went to Harvard and Stanford, but if you can't work with people or you can't like, communicate, like it's going to be hard to get stuff done. I'm not explaining it very well.
I think I get what you're saying. I think there's a lot of people who feel like they see somebody that they idolize because they're successful, and they think that person just one day jumped out of bed and instantly became rich, or hey, today I'm going to be the real Elon Musk and I'm going to take over the world. But what this says to me is that talent is not necessarily what's going to get there. It's that persistence and that dedication to build a craft. And then eventually, if you do it enough times, then something's going to come out of that. But you can't always rely strictly on your talent, I guess, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, maybe. But there's people, though. I don't care if it's Kobe or Mike or whatever, or Mike Jordan, like I know him. But all of these great athletes, those are the people that you hear that get way up early in the morning. They're in the gym and they shoot 1,000 free throws before everybody else even comes in. And we see them on TV and think, it just comes so easy to them. But it's only because they've put in that time and that talent.
I really like the way you put that. It's just like showing up every single day. And I see that a lot in the entrepreneurs we get to work with. Like, I'm sure you guys face it. Like, there's some days you just don't want to show up.
Right.
But you show up and you do the work. And it doesn't necessarily mean like success looks like, you're a millionaire or something like that. I think there's a lot of ways that we can think about defining success. Yeah. If you're someone who is really about building community or serving underserved populations, like there's still, it's still about showing up every single day and doing the work. So
let's dovetail into your role then in the startup community. How did that begin for you?
So I left my career as an architect in 2019. And about a year or two prior to that, I had decided that architecture with a capital A, and I knew actually probably way before that traditional architecture wasn't going to be for me forever. Yeah. So I decided to go back and get a business degree, which I did online. And I think it was 2017, I participated in a startup weekend out at the Zeal Center. And it was just like, man, these are my people. Yeah. Designers, entrepreneurs, programmers, all these people with great ideas coming together to like build something. So that was my first experience with like is the Zeal Center in Startup Sioux Falls. I worked for a couple years at a planning district called CCOG before reaching out to Brian, because as part of my MBA program, I could do an internship. And, at that, I was 30 something. I was like, I don't need to take another book class. Like, I should just, reach out to a couple organizations I'm interested in working for. And so I worked for the Zeal Center as probably the oldest intern of all time at like 32, 33 years old.
Yeah.
And it turned into a full-time position after that. And it strangely like combines a lot of my experience. And, because before doing traditional architecture, I'd worked for a nonprofit in like the design space.
Yeah.
I had taught. So really brought a lot of that together.
Interesting. So now that you've been in the startup world for like 7 years or so?
I mean, like involved in the community for that long.
Yeah. So with all of that combined experience, and then also your role as the VP at Startup Sioux Falls, what do you think? I mean, there's this widely held, I forget what the actual percentage is, but I think they say the vast majority of small businesses are going to fail within the first 5 years. Why do you think that is? And what do you think, what would you say to startups today that they need to stay away from or stop doing or start doing to be a success versus a failure?
So it's interesting because I've always had empathy for the entrepreneurs we work with and really trying to, understand where they're coming from. But I didn't quite understand it to my core until I tried to start my own thing myself recently. And I'm still very in the infancy phases. But I'm realizing now that I think a lot of the people who find success are the ones who are clear about, they figure out what the next most important thing to work on is, and they work on that. Because especially when you're starting, there's 5 million things that you could work on. Everything is in a state of infancy. So figuring out what is the next most important thing and working on that. And then I think also just, it kind of goes back to the quote, just persistence of not giving up before you've given it a chance.
We'll be right back.
So what for you, so the name of your startup business is called Palette. Is it Palette Creative?
Palette Creative Co. Palette for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was that next step that you identified that made you start this business?
Well, I mean, I hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs at work, and then they also just happen to be a lot of my friends. And so it's hard not to be inspired when you're hanging out with entrepreneurs all the time. And I was probably hanging out on the lake one day or something, but I just had this kind of lightning strike moment of, when I left architecture, I really found a passion for marketing. I love marketing. There's always something to learn. I love the metrics. I love the creative side of it. And I've seen, I think architects sometimes struggle with their marketing, or even if they're not struggling to get new clients, there's a lot of little things that they could leverage that would benefit them in big ways. So it's really simple. It's just marketing for architects. And right now I'm doing a weekly newsletter, trying to provide some value in that way. And then really figuring out, okay, what does the rest of it look like? Is it a template or, digital product? Yeah. Or is it, offering fractional marketing services for people?
So I think what I really love about hearing that from my experiences is that most entrepreneurs go, oh, I'm going to be a marketer. Okay, a marketer of what? Well, probably this and probably this and probably this and probably this. And so at the end of the day, that's they're trying to market everything to everybody, and that's where they fail because they can't get really good at one thing or one area because they want to basically cast out this big net, but they end up catching nobody. So you are literally the only person I know of who has ever said, I'm going to provide marketing for architects, which I think is kind of cool because when you are really good, you always hear the experts talk about the need to niche down. And that's really, really hard to do because there is this fear. Well, what if I can't reach as many architects and maybe there aren't enough out there. but it's a big world. And when you can gain the perspective of, yeah, there is a need out there, and I'm going to use my own worldview as an architect that I know they need marketing help, and they're probably not good at it, because if they were, they would have become marketers. They're architects, so they need some help. So yeah, I love that. I love that approach. So what do you think, or what are some of the next steps that you've got in your head to make this business take off?
Well, I think right now it's just remaining consistent with the newsletter. I'm trying to, and then I need to put more content out there, which ironically is a little bit difficult for me. It's just like, it is vulnerable. Just, it feels, when your business is so like connected to who you are, it's difficult. So I'm working on and through that. And then I did receive a small grant through the FAST launch to do some customer discovery. So I really want to dig into understanding, like, if I were to do digital products or something that, architects could like take and run with, because a lot of them are creative and technical, like they have a lot of the skill sets needed. What would those products be that would help people? Yeah. And then, I mean, the easiest and fastest way to revenue would be fractional marketing services.
Support consulting.
Yeah. And I have a couple potential clients that I'm like talking to right now. And I'm just excited because I feel like I could really serve people in a way that they're not served through general agencies, because it is such a unique industry.
Yeah. So you have a dream client?
Well, I would say my target market is firms of 50 people or less, which actually makes up 95% of firms in the United States.
How lucky are you there?
Yeah. So, and it's probably even smaller than that, like 25 or less. That's, between that 25 and 50 is when most of them are hiring their first marketing hire. And before that, every hour that they're marketing, instead of doing what they do, architecture, they're not billing clients. And a lot of times our first hire is a pretty green, like, person.
Yeah. So is there a specific dream firm that you want to call out and say, hey, y'all should look me up?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no specific firm.
That's good. Good politically correct answer. How dare you put her on the spot like that?
I mean, we have that too. I mean, if SpaceX was like, hey, Jeff and Vince, come make cool stuff for us, we're like, done.
SpaceX.
Done.
When I think about the firms that I would want to work, I like firms that have a strong voice, or they have they're not trying to be everything to everyone. And like those firms, I would love to help them like figure out who they're trying to serve. But there are a few firms locally, and then, regionally, nationally, who I think like they know who they are. And I really like those kinds of clients. So
I'm trying to remember which book this came from. I want to say it was Dan Martell, who has a book called Buy Back Your Time.
Yes.
Right?
Fantastic book.
Have you come to the part about the baker, the cupcake maker?
No, I think I'm in chapter 4. Someone dropped it at my desk the other day.
Great book.
Nice. Yeah.
So he gives, I think it's in this book, but he gives this example of this lady who everybody raves to her about how great her cupcakes are. And then they tell her, you should go into business. So she does. And her cupcakes are so wildly successful that she can't keep up. So she ends up hiring a couple of college kids to help her. But because she needs to manage the business side of things, she ends up doing that while the college kids end up doing the baking of the cupcakes. And then pretty soon now, she's stuck with the accounting, she's stuck with the marketing, with the operations, and she all of a sudden gets away from what drove her passion to make cupcakes. And so that's where the book gives this really great suggestion to hire someone like Sara if you're an architect, because it lets you focus on being the architect, billing those hours, and letting other people do the things that they enjoy doing. Because if you can imagine, I mean, I don't know a lot about architects, but if you went to school to be an architect, then by default, you're not going to be a great marketer. And so your time is going to suffer. You're going to be doing stuff that you're not really happy with doing. So I don't know. If I whipped up my crystal ball, it tells me you've got a successful outlook on how you're positioning yourself in the company versus trying to be all things to all people. For that reason, that let the architects make their buildings or their drawings or whatever they got going on, and then you get to promote them and make them look great.
That's the goal. I just have to get over the hump now of like, reaching out to people and
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
piece,
Be
which is hard.
consistent.
Yeah.
But that discovery part that you mentioned, I think that's a value too. I would say myself, there's lots of times where you make assumptions, but you don't actually try to discover that client. And I think that's really powerful in the future for you as you're talking about your business to other people is, well, from the architects that I've talked with, da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, oh, so I know that you were an architect, but then you mean you talk to other people? And I mean, I would hire on somebody like that who took the time to actually talk to coworkers or peers to find out what are the newest trends or the newest needs. So yeah, I think you've got yourself set up really well.
We'll see.
Well, you got cloud.
Haven't made my first dollar yet, but
Well, most entrepreneurs, we don't make our first dollar that actually counts as a positive dollar until a couple years in.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
yeah, and it goes back to that like that persistence, like just continuing to move forward.
Yeah.
So
Well, excited for you. Sorry we're such bad influences.
I know you are.
So who are some startups in the area? And I understand if you don't want to be politically correct, you're going to miss somebody. But are there people in the area that you're like, man, I really respect what they've done and how they've put themselves out there and how they've succeeded?
So many.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many. And I think a lot of like the immediate names that come to me are when I first started at Startup Sioux Falls, I was really involved with our co-starters program until we hired the wonderful Jeff Hayward, who's just taken it to a whole new level. But in that first cohort, it's just been really fun to watch those people grow over the years, and first couple cohorts, I should say. So one that comes to mind is Corey Poor,
Yeah.
childcare provider in Sioux Falls, and he's just, I mean, not only is he incredibly like kind and really, really good at what he does with children, but he's really just like transformed his business, and it's been fun to see him grow. Megan Raposa is another one who she launched Sioux Falls Simplified during the Co-Starters program, and she had done another accelerator prior to that. But it's just fun to see someone like that continue to grow and develop and just crush it. Marcella Salas,
Yep.
Tana Sukup,
Yep.
Sokup. Yeah, just tons of people.
Add a couple of names to that list. We haven't had Marcel on yet.
Yep. I think
Or
we're 3 for 5 of startup folks who've gone on to start their own businesses between you, Jeff, and Peter.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
The disease
We
is
all
just
just
taking
get
a
the
hold of
disease.
y'all.
And, Jeff was an entrepreneur, like, he's been an entrepreneur multiple times. And then Peter was just born to be an entrepreneur. Like, so.
So what are next steps? Where do you see the startup community going into the next 5 or 10 years?
In terms of like the organization, Startup Sioux Falls, we've reached the last 5 years since Brienne took over the organization has been a ton of change, and like it's been difficult and challenging, and like, but it's also been rewarding and fun, and so. But now we have this foundation that our community can build upon. And organizationally, we finally now have programs to serve people at the very front end through boot camp, co-starters, kind of that middle section, and then we launched GrowCo yesterday. So I think moving forward, it's really just building upon that foundation, and also like I think we're in a place now where our community of people can take things and run with it as well. We have more infrastructure in place to support that.
I'm curious to see, with the advent of AI, I've had a couple of conversations, and I can't remember if this was John Mayer that said this or if there was another source, and we were talking about AI, and they said that the danger about people utilizing AI too heavily is that we're going to end up seeing the same kind of idea or the same kind of product come from that effort, but that AI still needs a human being to kind of guide that creative process. But if you just say, hey, AI, give me some ideas, tell me this, tell me that, it's going to be kind of vanilla-ish.
Yeah.
But you need that spin that only a human can give to put in the right prompt to get the right information. But that over-reliance on AI is going to be a detriment to people if they're not careful about how to use it.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I know you're using some AI
Yeah.
tools. I have found it like expand my creativity.
Yeah.
Like even when I was coming up with my business name and logo, like I was trying to think about like, and I would, put things into Midjourney or ChatGPT, or Merlin is another one I've been playing with, and to generate ideas. And even if I came up with a graphic in Midjourney, I'm still taking that into Illustrator and making it my own. But it was more or less like how do I think about, branding a company called Palette? Like, give me some idea, So I've found it to expand my creativity. But I could see where misuse, it does create really generic content.
Yeah.
Or can.
Like this entire podcast is AI generated.
Yeah,
so
we're all
watch
just
out.
AIs.
Just figments of your imagination, viewers.
Have we talked about Matthew? Well, we probably shouldn't
We
mention.
probably should.
We already did, but no. But there is AI out there that's very cool. That you need to have the permission of that individual. So let's say we could take 5 minutes of your voice into an AI tool, and it will act as you. You type in whatever you want, and that's what Sarah's going to say. So the bad guys out there are potentially could use this then, just like deep faking, where you take somebody's image and then you create a situation where they're saying something but it's not really them.
Yeah.
But on the positive side, as long as you've got the permission of that individual, on the video side, if you find a flaw in what somebody says and they're like, oh yeah, I should have said 20 instead of 40.
Yeah.
You can actually insert that. So we've done that with our own voice on a couple of projects. And it's interesting how it does what it does, but at the same time, it does teach you not to be over reliant on it because it's not 100%.
Yeah.
Like the AI version of me is creepy. It always starts like going, and then it talks. And then Jeff was having the hardest time trying to match the voices. And then I told him, Jeff, the reason is AI Vince talks so clearly you can understand every single word, because regular Vince usually mumbles his words.
No, you don't mumble, you talk too fast.
Oh, I don't want to know what AI Sarah would be like.
Well, after this podcast,
Oh,
we'll
no.
find out.
Oh, no.
We'll call your husband and do something nefarious. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
So as we wrap up our show, Sarah, the core of our show has always been, how do we take that thread from the past and how do we link it to the present and the future of what you're doing right now? So is there a key memory, a story, a quote, something that comes to mind that you'd love to share with our viewers about that you still carry with you?
Gosh, I don't know if there's like anything specific. I think it's just like something that's really, it's interesting how you like look back on the, like your experiences from childhood, college, like, and you learn more. Like I learn more now than I did, of course, in the moment.
Right.
But I think something I've been thinking about a lot lately that I want to continue to carry forth is just like having curiosity and being open to possibility. Because in my particular case, like my road has been very, very windy and, backwards, forward, but actually that's what keeps it interesting to me, and also like allows me to do my best work for the community that I care about. So so just curiosity.
Keep that going. I like that. I like that.
Is there any advice that you would give 8-year-old Sarah? And was there any advice that you would take from 8-year-old Sarah? Last question.
Yeah, I think growing up, and I have wonderful parents, so I don't want this to like sound negative at all. But I think I would just put less pressure on myself to like be all the things and do all the things and do them well, because I think there were times where it stunted my growth in terms of like being able to make mistakes and recover from them quickly. And also like there were times in my life when I probably like architecture, for example, like I stayed on a path too long because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do, or like because I needed that external validation instead of like sitting with my own feelings and thinking about what is it that I want. And then advice from 8-year-old Sarah. I mean, I think so many of us are way less afraid when we're when we're young. Like we're not conditioned yet to
Condition. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's a really good way to put it.
So
All right, Vince, close us out, big dog.
All right. Big dog.
or should we say 11?
Bloody nose, Vince. Bloody nose dog.
Well, despite medical emergencies, we've made it to another wonderful episode of Nostalgia Street. As always, viewers, if you're listening to the show on Spotify or Apple, watch us on YouTube. You get to see all the fun graphics that show up, and especially that guy from How I Met Your Mother. We'll find out who he is.
Yeah.
As always, listeners, viewers, stay engaged, and we will see you next time on Nostalgia Street. Find all of Sarah's contact information on the show notes below. See you around. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.